Good morning and welcome to day 61 of the Geriatric 1944 Coronavirus Diaries. Yesterday's diary, when I talked about George Harrison, actually has been our most watched diary day so far, with a total of something like 83,000 views, would you believe, on all the platforms. That's YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the rest of them. Especially here on kingofhits.com, where you can read an awful lot of other stuff as well. And we're coming up for about 25 years of kingofhits.com. We've been here online for a very, very long time. It's been quite interesting watching slowly but surely the views move from the tip sheet forum, where we started off as the tip sheet, over into your views as I moved, unfortunately, and not of my own volition, out of music and into the false allegations industry and commenting on the world in general. But clearly, most people are more interested in the music aspect of things, judging by the views for the George Harrison piece. I thought I'd tell you another George Harrison story because we've had loads and loads of messages on all the various sites about George, good and bad. I like George. He was great fun. Back in the 60s, there were something that nobody knows about these days called groupies. And these were little girls who used to follow pop stars around and other stars, but mainly pop stars, and desperately try to have sex with them. They were all grossly underage. A lot of the little girls were so young they hadn't even matured, and they used to steal their father's woolen socks to stuff them into their training bras to make them look older, and wear lots of makeup and lipstick and so on, so that they could con all the big pop stars to actually seduce them. Some of which, I'm afraid to say, they did. Anyway, these groupies were generally quite sweet little girls and little boys in some cases, and basically they were just fans, and most of us knew how to deal with them, which was to say, here's your autograph, and here's those days we didn't have so many selfies, but here's a photograph of you with me, and good luck, and now go home to mummy and daddy and go to bed early, and don't forget to do your schoolwork. And in my case, I used to say, and don't take drugs. There was one little groupie girl, however, who was an absolute little monster. She can't have been more than 12 or 13 years old. She was a black girl, very, very ugly, with a hook nose. And what she used to do was go to find out where celebrities lived. She was brilliant at discovering things like that. Most people would never be able to find it. Arrive at a pop star's front door, ring the doorbell, and the door would open. It happened to me amongst many, many others. And a door opened and she'd say, "Hello, Jonathan King, you're up," a word which I wouldn't even repeat these days on the social networks. "Hello, Jonathan King, your music is everything you do is I know that you're a vile person and you're horrible and ghastly, and I don't know why you bother to make music," and all the rest of it. Just so abusive and nasty, you couldn't believe it. And you'd say, "Well, thank you so much, goodbye," and close the door. She'd jam her foot in the door and not let you close it and go on swearing at you in this horrible voice until you finally managed to push her away. Anyway, one day, in I think the Scotch of St. James we were in, which was one of the clubs we all used to go to, George Harrison appeared and said, "You're all going to buy me drinks all night tonight." And we said, "Why?" Everybody was there, Jimi Hendrix and John Lennon and all the people that you know so well. "Why?" we said. And he said, "Well, you know that horrible little girl groupie who comes round to your front door and insults you all?" And we all said, "Oh, God, yes, she's dreadful, a horrible, vile little creature." And George said, "Well, she came round to my house yesterday, and I opened the front door, and she went into her spiel about me being up, my music being and all the rest of it. And I raised my fist and smacked her in the face, broke her nose, blood poured out. She gasped in horror and pain, ran away, and I don't think we'll ever be hearing from her again." And I have to say, we never did. And we did all buy George Harrison a drink that night. I don't think he'd get away with it these days, but that was the time in the 60s when things went on. I was looking the other day, I was thinking of people, because I've been lucky enough in my 75 years of life to have met almost every major superstar. I've got to say, the biggest star I ever met in personality, with unbelievable charisma, was Margaret Thatcher, funnily enough. She was just incredible. I'm not that I was a big fan of her policies. In fact, I disagreed with most of her policies, but she really did have charisma. Many other people I've known and I've met all through my life, both through doing the TV shows, Entertainment USA, No Limits, and so on, but also just at various award ceremonies and bits and pieces, appearing on television and all the rest of it. And one of those I met by which time his career had blossomed. He was a lovely guy, was a guy who you probably won't have heard of, called Lemmy. He was the lead singer of a group called Motorhead. And when I met him, he revealed to me that years earlier, he'd heard one of my records that nobody's ever heard of, that I put out under a pseudonym, and he absolutely loved it. And the pseudonym I used was Ace, A-C-E, and the track was a track called Speed Freak, which was all about this schoolmistress who travelled the world on her motorcycle. And Lemmy said, I absolutely love it. I said, how on earth did you know about it? Well, Jimi Hendrix had told him about it. I think he either knew Jimmy or even worked for Jimmy well in the early days before he became a singer and a musician. I think he was one of the early musicians in a group called Hawkwind before he started Motorhead. Anyway, he said, I really loved that track. And in fact, we've made a song called Speed Freak. I hope you don't mind. And indeed, there was a Motorhead song, completely different song, that he made on the title Speed Freak. Well, I thought that was great fun. Lemmy died only a few years ago. He was a really sweet man, actually. His image of being constantly drunk or drugged and so on was probably true in his youth, but he was a sweetheart, very nice man. So I thought today I'd play you out with a song you probably never heard because it's very obscure, and that we didn't even publish it through my publishing company because I didn't want anybody to know that Ace was me. So I put it out on Marquis Music, which was my associate company that my partners owned. Have a listen and see what you think, and I'll see you tomorrow. Here is Ace, i.e. me, with Speed Freak.